Cool. Nice to see you, Margaret. We're going to quickly review the very brief chat we've had. My name is David Pinto, and I've developed an economic called Eco Squared, and it is based on a fundamental hack of how money operates. Okay, so it's potentially 3,000 years of disruption. So, and I think it creates a gift economy. Okay, so it enables collaboration, it supports collaboration and high trust relationships. Contrary to our current economy, where the basic economic is exchange. So we have a number that we use as money in the form of exchange. So we buy and sell things. So I have a pencil and we buy and sell pencils and everything else, including people, right? As Quakers, the idea of buying and selling people was, we didn't think was a good idea. And it's something to do with buying and selling and money, the operation of money, the root of all evil, money. So if we have an alternative to money at that basic level of a number applied to a social contract, it means that it's potentially a fundamental change. And I think it is. And so the fundamental change is this. Here's the pencil and here's the money. Okay. That is, I think you need a pencil because you're thinking brilliant thoughts and I think you may need to make a note of them. So here's the pencil. Here's the tool that can help you do that. And here's a number to indicate that I think this tool is valuable. I think you are valuable. And that's why I'm giving it to you. And if you accept it, you must accept, you want the pencil because you can use it, but you must accept the number. And that indicates a relational responsibility. So instead of our current exchange, and we can talk about that in a bit more detail with exchange-based, okay, and we talk about the psychology of how that works, pencil for the money. This one is, here's the tool, the device, the idea, the writing, the book, whatever it is, and here's the number. Okay, so there's an intention in that act relationally. And then when the person receives it, there is a responsibility in the act of accepting it. And so the mechanic at the base level, okay, with a number applied to our psychosocial movements is different fundamentally. And it is 3,000 years of disruption. And I think it contributes to a collaborative framework for us to operate what we do naturally, which is to collaborate, in fact. And so there are various consequences to this. So, for example, the circular economy, perfect, but the money should be going in the opposite direction. How does that work? With this alternative that I've got, this vector money. Commons, I think that this is a mechanism that simultaneously buys the commons back from the current economy of ownership to us collectively owning or stewarding the commons. There are a few other simultaneous kind of results from this, but ultimately, fundamentally, it comes down to exchange-based. Money is treated as a scalar, a quantity of a thing, versus sharing. Here's the thing, and here's the number. Okay, so it's a sharing, the alignment of intention. That's vector. We track that mathematically with a vector. So is that it? That's it in a nutshell. It was quite intense there. Did that make sense to you, Margaret?
Yes. So the other thing that you mentioned when we spoke was that the intention is to encourage everyone to do the same. So that if you receive a gift of the pencil and the money, that you therefore will also give a gift, which might not be the pencil, but it will also include money.
Yes. Now, with a physical object like a pencil, therefore the thing that's tracked is the sharing of something. So if I gave you this pencil and you wrote a piece of, beautiful work, then you might want to share your beautiful work forwards with the money that I gave you. Okay, you're saying, this is a valuable story I've written. I think you would get something out of it, and you share that forwards with this other person. Okay, so the number and how it applies and what it's applied to might shift. However, if, for example, we follow the example or the gameplay of Let's go from you have written something, okay? And it's like a poem. And you think, this isn't bad. I like this poem. I've, spent time, I've cogitated, and I've written this poem. How do we distribute it in this real world? I'm going to share it with, let's just say a friend, okay? A good trusted friend. You give it to them with, let's say, £1 or a penny. It doesn't matter. It's a certain amount of money. It has to be a number that you think is valuable. And we think that money is valuable. It doesn't have to actually be that, but let's just say you give it forwards with £1. So your friend receives it. If they want to read it, they must accept the £1. Let's say they accept it because they're your friend. They want to read your poem. Great. So they read it. They accept the £1. They read it. And they go, it's quite meaningful. Okay. Partly because of you, because they know you, but partly because it's actually meaningful. There's something in the actual experience of reading which is genuinely uplifting or insightful. And in the process of reading, or afterwards, they go, who do I think might benefit from this? And they think of, Alice, a friend, Alice. They share it forwards to Alice with £1 given to them. Okay. And so that's linear, £1, single £1. And then Alice reads it. And if the experience is valuable, they share it forwards with the same £1. So the money, the £1 just goes forward, person to person to person. And that means it's going to take a long time, but it could reach 1,000 people that like this. And imagine that 1,000 people have shared forwards this thing. That's amazing. Yeah. That's 1,000 people, 1,000 people sequentially. Whereas it's more efficient is if I think it is valuable enough, will I add £1 of my own and give it to a second person? Now that's the equivalent of buying. I put in the money, but instead of giving it to the author, I'm going to share it forwards to a second person who I believe will like the poem, will have a pleasant experience when they read it. So instead of buying something which closes the loop in our current economy, and then you have to go and sell your poem to somebody else, we're saying the responsibility of receiving is to share it forwards, which is the fundamental psychological and relational function of a gift economy. It's your responsibility when you receive something to share it forwards. So I share forwards the poem, and that's free because I'm using the same money. But if I think it's valuable, I add my own money, sucking it out of the current economy, putting it into something that I believe is valuable, and giving it to somebody who I believe will really value this. So, it's my risk, but I wish to do this. That's exponential growth to the power of 2. If Alice does that, and the other person that I've given it does that, and each one of us, when we receive something of value, we, instead of buying it, we put the same amount of money in, but share it forwards. That gets exponential growth. So if it was based on 2, within 10 steps, that's 1,000 people. That's 2 to the power of 10 is 1,000, 1,024. And each person has £1. And within 20 steps of sharing, 20 steps, that's 1,000,000 people, each with £1. Okay, and if it's 30 steps, it's 1 billion. 1 billion. That's £1 billion. Okay, now that's simply by sharing forwards, okay, instead of buying. So we get rid of the whole notion of buying and marketing and advertising. We just get rid of all of that, and we have the responsibility of, I've received this thing, I think this is good, I will share it forwards. And if I do that one act, my economics in this world is done. No advertising, no marketing, no buying and selling. Now, of course, so that's exponential growth, okay, from the simple act of sharing forwards by putting the money where your value is and giving it to another person. If the poet is saying, look, I work and I would like maybe a year off so I can write a whole book like poetry. And so when it reaches, I don't know, 100,000, and there's 100,000 people going, wow, this is a really valuable poem. Instead of sharing forwards, receiving the £1 and sharing forwards that £1, adding their own, okay, instead of both of them going outwards, the content creator, the author says, the poet says, can I have that, please? One of those. Oh, okay, yeah, of course. Here it is. And one of them disappears off to the content creator. And the other one continues. And therefore, the exponential can keep growing. Okay. But that one that's just taken out if there's 100,000 people, is £100,000
Mm.
that's given to the content creator, not for the poem, not for the poem because they've experienced it and they've benefited from it. It's for the author to write, to have a whole year out and to write an incredible, book. And what is that author going to do when they finish this book? They're going to give it forwards with £10. And then they share it forwards with £10. And then, and it's another exponential growth, but through a network that's already experienced a really powerful poem, and it's with £10 this time. It's a higher trust game, okay, because it's a higher quality of content, and there's more time involved in creating it. There's more time in experiencing it, reading a whole book as opposed to a poem. And so we can start playing games like that, and not just with poems and books, but with, anything virtual, music, anything like that. But I think it can work with physical objects, including pencils and food, and then you're starting to talk about the whole um, um, circular economy and so on, and how that cycle works, where the money flow is going in the direction of the thing shared. Okay, it's going direction, and it needs to flip back to the content creator. So in any type of natural cycle, we're talking about, for example, the farmers. The money goes to the farmers, not backwards to the farmers. uh, when I eat an apple and I go, wow, this is really good. I want more apples in the future. The money that I receive with that apple, I give to the farmer. The farmer. Okay. And then they push the money forwards through the system until eventually I get another apple the following year. And I go, oh, 2 apples. Fantastic. And they're super delicious. So I'm going to give my money back, not back, forwards to that farmer so that they can grow the apples so that they can deliver more apples for next year. Okay, so the whole thing is the money's going forwards with the thing shared. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, yes. Yeah. Right. Shall I stop the recording?
Do you have any questions that you would like to ask, like at all, before you do want to do that? Or
What I'll do is I'll stop